I'm live. Hi, my name is Maria Di Gianmarco. I'm a creative at the Camp Gallery, and today I'm going to be talking to one of our camp artists, Laetitia Adam-Rabel. She's also part of our current exhibition in Miami, 64 Women Pulling at the Threads of Social Discourse. Her background is in design initially. She started at Parsons. And not only is she like a textile artist, but she's dabbled in painting and photography and illustration, design, obviously. So she's one of those people who just has that creative impulse and applies it to everything. So I'm really excited for this conversation. This is part of a series of interviews. Oops. That we're doing in celebration of the exhibition in Miami. If you want to come see it, you can DM us here on Instagram or you can email us at hello@thecampgallery. To go live, yay. Hi,
Hi.
how are you?
Good. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Okay. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Ooh, how's the weather been treating you? It's kind of like overcast. And when I
Yeah.
woke up, I was like, what is going on?
Yeah, it's been on and off. I was just saying this morning that it's supposed to be fall and it's supposed to not be raining anymore apparently. But this is Miami.
That's true. I have some family coming in from Venezuela and they're like, what is it with this rain? I thought this was paradise. I was like, sorry.
Yeah.
God. So I'm really excited to be talking to you, and I think I say this to you every time I see you. I'm always like, I'm so excited. I'm so excited to see you. Um,
Uh,
yeah, and so initially I think that the camp proper met you through last year's Women Pulling at the Threads of Social Discourse, correct?
that's correct. Yeah, back then it was like 40 women, I think, and I think
Mm-hmm.
there were two men.
Yeah.
40 women pulling at the threads. Uh, yeah, so I had a banner or a flag
Mm-hmm.
in that exhibition. Yeah,
Yeah, I remember it. I think it was pink, white, and red, the colors of
the colors
democracy.
of that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. What a beautiful piece. Was that like your first foray into textile art, or were you already working with textiles?
So that's a good question. That was like my official like first textile art piece for an exhibition.
Mm.
However, I have a long history with textiles. As you were mentioning, I studied at Parsons. I went to Dash before in high school,
Ooh.
and I was studying fashion design. So, like my grandfather in Haiti was a tailor, and his wife, my grandmother, was a seamstress, and she made wedding gowns. And my mom made like her own clothes, like she designed and made her own clothes going to school. So like that's my background with textiles. And then when I saw that Aurora Molina posted about Fama and then found out about the exhibition, I was like, hey, I'll give it a go. Um, so yeah,
Wow. I would have never guessed that your relationship with textiles is so like it's so part of you, like by family. But I also would have never guessed that that was your first like formal textile piece.
yeah, actually, I'm not surprised to hear that because I have a love-hate relationship
Please
with,
elaborate.
yeah, with textiles because the story goes, apparently I found out recently that my grandfather had said that fashion design or, like basically tailoring is kind of like an ingrate field, and he doesn't want any kids of his to go into that field. And I didn't know this until after like I came back from New York um,
Mm,
after having studied at Parsons for 2 years because I was supposed to do my bachelor's there, but unfortunately my grandmother passed away, and
mm,
like she was very close to me, and that really affected me. So I needed to be back home. So like years after I came back, my mom told me, yeah, my father didn't want any of us to end up in the fashion industry because he said it's a cutthroat thing. And
It
so
is.
I was like, well, I wish I had known that before.
Got
um,
it. And
yeah,
then, so, but you finished your bachelor's,
I did.
no?
So I got a bachelor of science in art education at FIU.
Oh,
So yeah, even though I didn't study fashion design after all, like I did make use of my art education.
yeah.
And of course, I've been an artist like since I was a kid, like a
Yeah.
toddler. Yeah.
Which
Um,
now you're passing on to your daughter.
yes, actually, she is a big collaborator. And
Yeah.
actually, that piece you can see behind me, you might not be able to see it very well,
Yeah,
but
I
it's
can.
so she actually collaborated with me on that. She did a lot of the scribbles on the mermaid's tails, and so we do a lot of
Uh,
work together.
Is it important to you to pass that on to her? Because I know a lot of your work is about like not just like manifesting your creativity, but about like intertwining your identity and your creativity. So especially intersecting like your blackness, your womanhood, your roots. Are you intentionally imparting that?
So that's a good question, and it's yes and no because it's
Mm.
my daughter. My husband is also a fine artist,
Mm-hmm.
and so my daughter is a born like artist, like true blue. So she already has that in her. So
Mm-hmm.
I am homeschooling her. So it is at the same time very important for me to incorporate art in every day, like what we do at home. Everything is about art. Like she's learning to read, but like we're incorporating that with like art. So it's just she has it in her genes, and but I also am making an effort to hone that in her. Definitely,
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you, well, I don't know how to ask this. Do you find that like, or rather, let me rephrase that. Do you think that she's imparting anything on you and your creative process now?
Definitely. She is a big part of like she's my muse right now. A lot of the work I do, I find that like I maybe am like thinking of her the way she'll be as an adult or as a
Mm-hmm.
young woman. And also like my role as a mother now has changed my focus somewhat with what I'm trying to do with my artwork because I find like there's a different purpose and a different urgency in
Mm-hmm.
like trying to protect the environment. I mean, I was always on the environmental side of things, like even in elementary school, but now being a mother, it's like I'm like, we really have to think about what kind of world we're leaving
Oh, yeah.
this new generation. So yeah, I see a lot of things through her eyes now.
I mean, it's always good to return to our roots in that way, like the little one inside of us. There's a lot of talk now about like the inner child.
Yeah.
But I feel like especially for creatives, like that inner child is much more present than it might be for other people in other
Yeah,
fields.
there's a quote, and I wish I remembered who it was, but that says that we're all born artists, but
Mm-hmm.
the professional artist is the one who managed to keep the child inside alive. Or I know I'm butchering the quote, but it's something to that effect.
The essence is the same.
Exactly. So it's like it's the artist is the inner child who survived.
Mm-hmm.
So like really, it's true that working with my daughter, I am getting a second chance at being a child again. Yeah. So she's bringing that playfulness out of me a lot more.
Oh.
Sorry about those echoes.
It's okay. I spoke with Regina Gestro last week, and her
Uh-huh.
dogs were like very present. I personally enjoy that because we're all human beings and like it's part of life,
Yeah.
whatever it may be.
It's true, and usually, like I don't mind if she's around, and she takes her art very seriously, my daughter, and
Yeah.
she was just here, and she got dressed for the interview, and she was like, she wants, she wants to have her she calls it my studio,
Yeah.
she wants to have her studio, so
I remember when we were all in the Miami gallery for the opening of the quilt exhibition,
Uh-huh.
that you and your husband were telling me about her being like, I have to do my studio. Sorry,
Yeah,
I gotta
yeah,
go do my studio.
totally. Like she's very serious and like
Yeah.
on top of it. She told my mother the other day, she was like, no, no, Gaga. She calls my mom Gaga. I have to go because like I'm preparing my portfolio.
Kids do pick up on the things that we adults say though. Like, so it must be really fun also
It
to have
is.
like a little collaborator.
It is,
Um,
and it's like it's kind of like in a way watching a mini me because like I look at her sometimes I'm like, wow, I wonder if I was like that when I was her age. I mean, I know she's like light years ahead of me when I was that
yeah,
age because like
they
first of all
always
like
are.
yeah, I mean the generations are different and like these days like she takes like amazing photos on my camera on my phone and she tells me, Mommy, I need a duplicate so I can edit this one and
Oh my
yeah, and I'm like, yeah, totally. So I make a duplicate for her and she can edit it. So that's how you can't delete anything off the phone because mommy is the one who gets to delete stuff.
God. Oh man. Well, so I want to connect this like this I don't know what it is because it's not exactly newfound. I don't think it ever stops being new either.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess the forgive me. I'm really good at like talking, but like
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the words like I have the feeling of the word, but I don't have the word.
Oh no, that's fine. Yeah, you get a little tongue tied. It happens.
Yeah. No, but like I guess in discovering and rediscovering yourself continually, especially through experiences and this like lifelong experience now of being a mother,
Mm-hmm.
um, do you find like do you have a I guess it's two questions. One, do you your work in general, is it meant to be like a conversation with other works with other artists? Um, And also, like, are you making it for that purpose or are you making it for anyone?
Um, so my work is in a way it speaks to a lot of issues that are very global and
Mm,
universal, but at the same time, it's very personal because I mean, I'm gonna just let you know, like all of you out there, I actually have a diagnosed mood disorder, and
mm,
my work is super therapeutic for me to the point where, like, if I go a day without making artwork, like, I won't sleep. So
wow.
it's like medication for me. I need to work and do my art because it affects me that much.
Wow.
So it really is an outlet that I need to like
Hmm.
constantly like give to because it nurtures me. So uh, and also like that being said, like the I've talked about like in my biography about like my work being evolving and
Hmm.
transforming in the same way that I transform it. And it's like part of it is like my mood. Like sometimes like I'll look at my work and I'm like, no, what was I thinking? You know, and I get angry with my work and I like say, you know, no, now this work's gonna become part of another work. Like so I break it and it's like now it's gonna become like like some of my sculptures will become pieces of like there'll be mosaics on a different sculpture. So it's
Wow.
like because it's always evolving. So of course that process, that being said, that process stops when someone acquires the work. So then it doesn't transform anymore. So
That's so interesting that I would have never guessed.
yeah, I mean, I'm managing, and I'm, I'm. It's an I want. I think it's very important to advocate for people with mental, illnesses because,
Hmm.
like, it's there's a lot of stigma, and like we
Yes.
don't. A lot of people are not functional, but there are a lot of us who are very functional. You know, we have kids, and we have jobs, and we have, we take care of everything that needs to be taken care of
Yeah.
but we do have these conditions and it's like sometimes you have to take time for yourself and nurture yourself, but that doesn't mean we can't so it's like I think
Precisely.
exactly, so it's like yeah, having a daughter and being married, like all those things are things that normally um like if you look at studies, they'll say that the odds are stacked against people with mood disorders,
Yeah.
for making those steps in life. But I'm saying, look, um, just because I have a condition, you wouldn't tell somebody who has diabetes that they shouldn't have offspring,
No.
because maybe the offspring will have diabetes. So I'm like, that shouldn't be a reason for me to not do those things that I want to do in life. Yeah.
Precisely. And I think that incorporating it into your practice, like your art practice,
Mm-hmm.
um, and your art practice incorporating itself into this facet of your life, like I feel like it's the perfect relationship because art is already mental, like it's
Mm-hmm.
already in our
Mm-hmm.
imagination, and
Right.
sometimes it can be difficult to express our artistic visions in the same
Right.
way that, mood disorders can make things difficult.
Right.
But I feel like, I mean, it's not surprising that you find it to be therapeutic, that you can't sleep if you're not creating, because I imagine there's like relief involved, not just in getting your creative vision out, but it like mental, emotional
Yeah.
relief.
And sometimes it's not even about like the end product so much.
Mm-hmm.
It's about the process of the journey of making artwork. And sometimes like I start a piece and I don't know where it's gonna what it's gonna end up looking. Because I found myself like I used to sketch a lot, but
Mm-hmm.
these days like I create pieces and I don't sketch because it's like I want the piece to talk to me and I want it to become what it wants to become. So it's like it's a
Wow.
very like immersive and like fluid
Mm-hmm.
thing that I'm doing. It's like very subconscious. Like I'm doing it as it's coming to me. So I don't necessarily plan things anymore.
Hey, that's cool though. I love hearing that because that's very much life. Like life is very much like this is what I want, and it never looks
Right.
like what you want. But more often than not, I think we do get what we want. It just
Yeah.
doesn't look the way we thought it would.
Well, and I think sometimes we're setting ourselves up for disappointment when we plan things to the T, and it's like if there's any deviation from
Yeah.
that what we expected, then we get disappointed. Whereas I think sometimes, and especially as artists, I think sometimes, it's coming, it's like the collective consciousness, and there's something that's coming to us that we need to put out there. And it's not necessarily about us anymore. It's like sometimes
Mm-hmm.
something bigger than us. And if we try to control every aspect of it, first of all, we're getting in the way of the message,
Yeah.
but also like then we're setting ourselves up for disappointment. So I try not to do that as much.
Wow. I love it. So, how does that relate then to the piece that you made for the exhibition? I wish I had, and I keep saying this, but like I never follow through. I wish I had like an iPad or something. Your piece is, I think it's 23 by 23.
Yeah.
Says infinite power, and it's like busts. So it's a bust of
Uh-huh.
you,
Hmm.
Nina Simone, Kamala
Hmm.
Harris, and I don't know if I'm remembering correctly, Beyonce,
That's right. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Queen Bee.
Queen Bee. Yeah. I mean, I love Beyonce. I
Me
mean,
too.
yeah. I mean, I love all these women, of course.
Hmm.
And yeah. So, how does that relate to it? So, the piece. First of all, you said it's 23 by 23, and if you notice, it was supposed to be 24 by 24,
Yeah.
but that in itself is very telling because even though I studied fashion design and I know how to measure, and I even taught like math, intervention to elementary school students at
Wow.
one point, I'm very capable of being like to the T with measurements. But when it comes to doing artwork, I am like kind of like systematically opposed to having that rigidity. So it's like
Yeah.
I'll start and it'll go where it wants to go. And also the quilt piece is not a perfect square. I kind of rounded the edges and it does.
Yeah.
So it's like I have a problem with things looking super perfect unless I intend for them to look super perfect. But
Right.
most of the time, because of the process of like just kind of like being fluid with the piece, like it doesn't end up being exactly like even to the measurement. So,
I mean, it doesn't mean that it's not so beautiful and so moving, regardless.
so I mean that piece, it talks about hope and it talks about
Hmm.
like the fact that um women, and especially women of color, like we've been fed a lie that we don't have any power. And
Yeah.
of course, it's not only a lie, because like a lot has been done to make sure that we don't know the power that we have.
Precise.
Um,
Yeah.
right. So it's like taking back that power is basically just in starting in the realization that it's a lie and
Hmm.
it's been orchestrated. And it's not because we're innately powerless.
Right.
All to the contrary. So it's really just talking about like different aspects of life and different women from different walks of life having different kinds of power. We
Hmm.
have Nina Simone, who was a singer, an amazing singer and activist,
Yeah.
and Beyonce, who's an amazing entertainer, also somewhat of an activist,
Yeah.
and me, a visual artist, and Kamala Harris, who's
Who's the
the
vice president?
president and a politician. So it's like we all have our own kind of power, and I think it's very important to see. I don't have the level of power, that, or not power, the level of notoriety that they
Yeah.
have, but that doesn't mean that I can't use what I have um, to affect change in the world and to be powerful. So it's like
Yeah.
you use what you have and where you are to say what you have to say, however you need to say it. So it's like this thing of thinking that we're completely powerless is the biggest tool that has stripped our power is our
Hmm.
heads, like telling us believing it.
Oh yeah, and other people wanting you to believe it
Right.
as well. And it was interesting to me when I saw the final piece when you added the gold.
Mm-hmm.
Because I had seen it, Mario, who's
Mm-hmm.
one of my fellow campers, he went to visit you in your studio, and he gave us a sneak peek
Uh-huh.
of it before you had finished it. And I remember seeing Nina Simone, Beyonce, and Kamala Harris, and you, and I was like, what a group. Because it doesn't, like, Nina Simone, rest in peace.
Right.
Beyonce, who's like the greatest living entertainer
Yeah.
to come out of the United States, at least.
uh,
And the vice president of the United States, who made like who made like insane moves before even
mm-hmm,
getting
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
to be vice president of the United
Right.
States.
Right.
And you, it's like you're not necessarily, because neither are the three of them on the same plane as far as
Right.
influence or whatever goes. But when you go down to the micro level, it's women who are deliberate, women who are outspoken, women who will do whatever it takes
Mm-hmm.
um, to go for what they want, and who were very or are very honest figures.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So my background is like in pop culture.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so like looking at somebody who's like well, you
Mm-hmm.
seeing your face
Mm-hmm.
amongst theirs,
Mm-hmm.
and there's no hierarchy to it either.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you're not placing yourself at the bottom, you're not placing someone else at the top. You can turn the piece any which way you want.
That was part of the thing. Like,
Hmm.
I kind of made it in a circle within the square, a circular kind of like wheel of
Yeah,
life. Because yeah, like you said, except for the fact that I did write infinite power at the top.
yeah.
So yeah, you kind of have to read it that way, but it is a circular,
Hmm.
cyclical.
Yeah, especially because they've been at different points of their life as of you, when certain milestones have been reached, when certain, inciting moments
Mm-hmm.
in the stories of your lives um have come to fruition, I guess.
Right.
It was quite beautiful to see somebody taking, especially now where like we're living within this like struggle for power in our personal
Mm-hmm.
lives, not
Mm-hmm.
on like a political or systemic way, but in terms of fame.
Right.
Like everyone wants to be an influencer, everyone
Right.
wants to be sponsored and all that. It was so interesting to see you take it and be like, no, I'm just as good. We're all just as good. We all exist with each other, because that's also um like a feminist issue.
I think it's very important for us to
Yeah.
understand that just because we don't have 10,000 followers or even 1,000 followers,
Mm-hmm.
that does not mean that we cannot influence somebody. Somebody out there is looking up to you, and Even if it's only one person that you influence, you don't know what
Yeah.
influence you're going to have on them and where they're going to be in their life and remember what you did. And I think that's part of like my education
Mm-hmm.
background. I also come from a family of like educators, but
Oh.
yeah, a lot of educators in the family. But so as an educator, you think, I may never see the
Mm-hmm.
children that I touch, whose lives I touched, but um, you're influencing them, and you're giving them something, and you never know where that's gonna go, you know.
At all. I don't know
So
if Nina Simone was aware. I know that she did so deliberately, like she
mhm.
wanted that to happen, but I don't even know if she was aware of the impact that she's had. Especially nowadays, considering like the meaningful reckoning and the
Right.
conversations happening for everybody, not just women or Black women. But I don't think that she was aware that she would have that influence in the same way that like you're not aware of the scope of your
Well,
influence.
that's where I think like it's important to first of all let the message come to you and
Mm-hmm.
not try to get in the way of it all the time, but also always speak from the heart. Like speak your truth and say what
Mm-hmm.
is true for you, because you can never like lose out that way, because we're the best us we know how to be. There's no other me, there's no other you. You're the best person who can be you, and like there can never be another. So what you were made for, at this time that you're here, just be that person, because no one else can do that. So I think it's super important that we internalize that no, we don't have to have a million followers
Right.
to influence.
Wow. I love that all of this is like behind your piece because it's I think oftentimes like we as creative people we want to speak on what's currently happening and we want to um directly evoke
Mm-hmm.
the people who look like us that have had an influence on us or both. But we don't often get the chance to
Right.
without it, being labeled as something else, like a
Right.
pop art or something like that, for example. So I don't know if you already answered this, but like in talking,
Mm-hmm.
but did you deliberately choose these three, or are there other people that you were considering, like including their likeness, and you were like,
um
no?
so these women are super special to me, although there are other women that
Hmm.
I'm considering elaborating on the piece and making it bigger.
Hey,
Yeah,
cool.
I mean, there's so many influential women that are remarkable. Like, of course, I can't say that that's it, but like to me, like Nina Simone, like I love her music and I love
Yeah.
her activism, and Beyonce, like she's Queen Bee, and Kamala Harris with all her multicultural background and being the VP, and like everything she's done thus far.
Hmm.
Like they're super meaningful to me. So that's why I started with these people. But I do want to expand on that piece.
Cool. So who else would you include, or are you gonna let them come to you
I,
and be
I
like,
have
I
a
want to
couple.
be?
I have a couple others. I have a couple others. Yeah, I think I even started the imagery already, like processing the images. But I think I want it to be a surprise.
Okay, that's a perfect answer also. I mean, there's so many to pick, there's so many people to pick from, like from so
Yes.
many different realms of like experience and influence. So
Yeah.
I'm really excited for that now.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, there you are. Okay. You froze for a second. Okay. Um,
Yeah, sorry, I don't know what happened.
no, it's okay. So yeah, I think that I'm thinking like this piece is going to evolve, and I'm looking at making it into like a full size like bed quilt, and it's gonna be an installation. Hopefully, when I get to work on it, to see it to
Hmm.
fruition, it will be like an installation with a headboard and a mattress and like
Oh,
okay, but I'm not gonna give too much away.
no, no, don't feel pressured to. I'm just saying that that's sounds sick in the best way. That sounds so cool. Because even I'm not gonna get into it because then you're gonna have to give things away. But that's interesting though because I'm starting to realize that like this project, in its third iteration,
Hmm.
goes so far beyond like the exhibition itself.
Uh-huh.
Like it's so much of a, I guess like an inciting incident or like a pulse point
Hmm.
for everyone who participates. I know that Regina Gestro, whom I talked to last week,
Hmm.
she has a series of quilts, but she made
Hmm.
these little 24 by
Hmm.
24s part of her series, but you know, also for the show
Right, right,
specifically. And
right.
then to hear you saying you made this for the show and like now you're gonna amp it up.
Yeah, so actually it was interesting because when I saw I had started working on this quilt piece um back in the spring,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't know what like how I was gonna, completely, work it out.
Right.
And then I saw the call for the quilt pieces, and I was like, oh, that's a great way to start. So, that gave me the impetus to start it. But I had already started working on the images for some of the other women also. Say hi.
Hi.
Say hi.
She's
Yeah.
debuting.
She's
So it was kind of like serendipitous.
yeah, very much so. And I think, I found that a lot of times when you let things come to you, it works out that way. Ends up being serendipitous, um, because it's not just you trying to work against the grain and against the
Right.
current to make things happen. It's like the universe sending things your way. So
Yeah.
I embrace that way of working.
Wow. And so, wow. That's I the thing I love most about these like conversations that I have like the privilege of being part of, um, is not just like listening to you like express all of this, but also just like thinking about the magnitude that that has for other people. Like everyone listening in is like, what? Me? That could happen to me too. It's so rich.
Well, yeah, I think it's like I said, it's really important that we're true to ourselves and that we know that we can make change, and also knowing that we all have power. We
Yeah.
all have power, and I think it's about listening. A lot of times, it's about listening and listening to what is good for us, not
Yeah.
just not just what we want necessarily, but sometimes there's a bigger purpose and we have to listen.
Oh, yeah. Sometimes the messages come to us.
Yeah, and we have to
Yeah.
listen. Yeah. And
Absolutely.
it comes in, and because we're so different, like as different as we are, there are different ways that we get universal
Yeah.
um you know input.
It's the human experience.
Yeah. And I think
Jeez.
some of us are very afraid of listening to that. And I'll be the first to say that, being someone with a mood disorder, uh,
Mm-hmm.
I've been that person who was afraid to listen to my inner voice. You could call it your inner voice, or maybe the universal voice,
Mm-hmm.
because then sometimes people will say, like, what is she talking about? Like, is it her condition talking? Has she
No,
gone off the deep end?
never. Not here, at
but,
least. Not here.
but you have, as artists, we have to tap into it. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm still like taken aback by you talking about how, or you mentioning how like if you don't work, like if you don't make art, you can't sleep.
Right.
Like that in and of itself is a message.
Yeah.
I think that you're on the right track. And does that apply to like anything? Like it's just you have to do anything, any kind of work, whether it's painting or photography, etc.
So like usually, yeah, it depends. Like whatever the idea that I have in my head,
Mm-hmm.
um, like then I will say, okay, this feels like it should be a photography piece. Like what I really want to express feels like it should look realistic, so I
Mm-hmm.
want it to be photography. And then some other times I'll be like, I just need to get my hands dirty. So it's like, I want this to be like a multimedia, like painting, sculpture, something. So yeah, it's not just the content that dictates when and how I work, but the content dictates like what materials I use.
Wow.
I'm sorry you can hear her in the background.
Don't worry.
She's having a grand old time with her dad right now.
Life happens. At least she's having fun. And I'm having fun. I would assume you're having fun.
I am.
So that's the best that we can ask for, I think. Now I do want to talk about like the whole point of the show, the recurring theme, or the thread, no pun but pun intended, that runs through it. Your work in general pulls at the thread of social discourse regardless of medium, and I'm interested in knowing how you approach it when it's a group show, and not just like a group show with like a couple other artists. It like grows in size. I mean, you said it, or we both said it. Last year's was 40 women and 2 men. And this year it's 64 women and 4 men. So how do you approach your piece when it's going to be among so many others?
So that's a good question, because like when I first saw the call for the quilts, I had no idea what everybody else was going to be doing. And I didn't know what everybody else was going to be doing until I saw the show. But what I did know was that the thread was that like the personal becomes political. And like I said, you know what? I know how I want to talk about it. So as long as I'm being true to myself, like I'm going to do it. And if it gets in the show, great. And if it's not, well, I'll just continue working towards it. So it's like, I just knew how to be true to myself. And like I said, it's like, if it was meant for the show, then it would work. And if it wasn't, then it would be for something else.
And I mean, it does work. They all work. Somebody came into the gallery while I was in yesterday. And they were just somebody from like city of North Miami passing by, decided to come in. And we were in front of your piece specifically. And they were like, I just love how none of them are the same. I was like, yeah, that's kind of the whole point. And it's so not just moving in the sense of like looking at each individual piece or whatever, or moving because it's so big in like a relatively small space, but it's moving because I keep talking about this exhibition as like a reflection of society, or what it could look like, or what it does look like, just if you take into account like the variety of backgrounds within Fama, within camp staff, within whoever comes to see it. I think the only thing that connects everyone is their willingness to participate. And so it's moving to be able to stand in front of a reflection of the world we live in without preconceived notions of like, a Black woman made this and somebody who's a formal textile artist made that, and blah, blah. Like there's no expectations other than this is how people feel.
Right. And I think that's really powerful, because the way it came together, like despite the fact that we're so different, yet we're human beings having an experience in life. And so that really shows, like, because I could connect with so many of the pieces, and there are some pieces I was like, well, I wish I had done that one. Like, it's like, they were so beautiful, and the exhibition is so beautiful because what makes us strong as a society is our differences.
Yeah.
And the only common thing is that we're all having an experience, and we're dealing with it the best way we know how. And as long as we're being true to ourselves, and we're expressing what we're going through, then we're going to connect to other people, because we're different, but we're not that different.
No, at all. I mean, even more often than not, like especially in the Caribbean, because you're Haitian, I'm Venezuelan. And like lots of Venezuelans will argue like whether or not we're like part of the Caribbean or part of South America or both. We're so mixed not
Mm-hmm.
just in, you know, heritage, but like in experience. And yet we all
Mm-hmm.
come together
Mm-hmm.
over, you know, maybe the way that we eat plantains or something like that. It's very similar in that way. Everybody's bringing together all of these different perspectives and, you know, the way that they eat plantains. And, and they're still like, okay, but we work.
Mm-hmm.
Like we work, your piece works next to the pieces
Mm-hmm.
it's amongst, and the pieces it's across, and even on
Mm-hmm.
its own,
Mm-hmm.
it works. You know, I think it's just such a testament, one, to everybody's like ability
Mm-hmm.
to be vulnerable
Mm-hmm.
and I guess forthcoming or transparent,
Mm-hmm.
truthful, and unafraid.
Right.
But also like the individuals, like your individual human ability to be vulnerable, to be transparent. And I think you do exactly that with your piece. I think infinite power, because the piece is kind of unassuming for anybody
Mm-hmm.
watching who doesn't know what it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's white, you have black and white bust, says infinite power, and it's like gold. If you saw it from far away without your glasses on,
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't necessarily know, but if I got, as soon as I started walking closer to it, there's like
Mm-hmm.
immediately an aura of like vulnerability. Like you
Right.
know what it's about, and
Right.
how difficult it can be to have that conversation nowadays, especially in public. Did you like work thinking that, or were you just thinking, I'm gonna be true to myself?
So that's a very good question again. The thing is, yes, I had to think about being vulnerable because, yeah, like you said earlier, I have these three women who have like an amazing, huge platform,
Mm-hmm.
and then me, and I'm like, to put myself in that same like piece, you could think, well, who does she think she is? Like, I'm sure there are people who would think that,
I hope
and I'm
not.
like, well, but you know, you can, you know, it's like you have to say, yeah, yeah, I can do that because yeah, I can make change, I can, and it's like the the hope of saying I can and I will and I
Mm-hmm.
am, it takes vulnerability
Yeah.
to put it out there and to say, okay, I may not be there yet, but um I'm putting it out there
Oh
that I'm
yeah.
a receptacle and I want to make change. I'm doing. So it's like you have to be vulnerable. And but I think like basically if you're an artist, you have to be vulnerable because you're constantly putting your emotions out there.
Yeah. I don't know of an example of somebody who wasn't vulnerable
Right.
in their creative process at all.
Right.
And I don't know how people who aren't creatively driven deal with their emotions, if I'm being quite honest, no shade to anybody watching, or anyone we know. I don't understand how people process without, you know, even if it's just like a doodle or
Right.
a word, you know what I mean? Like, I couldn't tell you.
Well,
And maybe we're not supposed to know.
maybe we're not. And I know there's a there's a saying in French. It says "Il faut de tout pour faire un monde," which means you have to have a little bit of everything to make a world.
Oh,
So it's like we artists know how to deal with our baggage with our art, through our art.
yeah,
Somebody who's an accountant who doesn't have an artistic bone has their way of dealing with it. And
yeah.
at the end of the day, we all need each other. So it's okay that I may never understand how an accountant goes through life and how they deal with their thing, but I know how I'm going to deal with
And maybe you'll help them deal with it. Maybe they'll look at
it.
your piece and be like,
And
I
that's
can be a good accountant. Like
and
Nina
that's
Simone was a fabulous singer.
well, that's the beauty of art because like even if somebody doesn't make art, if they can appreciate it, it's because it speaks to them. And that's what we're here
Yeah.
for, is to speak to people and speak of the experiences we're having and put it out there. So if if nothing else, like I feel I've done my job. I've done my job as an artist. If I was able to speak to someone who may not be an artist and who saw something that moved them. So yeah.
Mm, dang. So many truths being spoken in this live. I love these. I really do. Like at some point and I maybe you agree, like talking sometimes, especially like live,
Mm-hmm.
can be it can like inspire nerves.
Mm-hmm.
But I think when we approach these things just as like wanting to have a nice conversation, so much magic comes out of it, like especially that like the I wish I could speak French and I could repeat it. The phrase that you just
Mm-hmm.
mentioned, like if I could carry that everywhere with me now, I didn't know it before.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
now I'm like, I'm internalizing this.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, it's like we learn from each other, and like you
Yeah.
said, having conversations like this really allows us to get into to know each other better and to understand. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
so grateful to have this time to speak to
Me
you and
too.
to everybody out there, to talk about like my work and my process and me,
Mm-hmm.
and because it is one thing to do artwork, but to have the opportunity on top of that to talk about your work, so people better understand where you're coming from
Yeah.
is not to be taken for granted, because it really makes a difference if someone sees the person
Oh
behind
yeah.
the artwork. So it's really
Oh
great.
yeah. I'm just like I'm thinking of all your other pieces and now I'm thinking of them like as textiles. Because for anyone who doesn't know, we work closely with you, the
Hmm.
camp, and we have some of your paintings,
Hmm.
and they're so elegant. Like it's the
Thank
one word
you.
that comes to mind
Mhm.
every time I see your work. I'm like, ah, like so it's so elegant. Like it's just pure and elegant. But
Thank
excuse me.
you.
Um, have you ever thought about translating those paintings into textiles?
um so I made a couple pieces thus far that are like a hybrid, between the paintings and the textile,
Hmm.
where I incorporate some painting, but I still have like the uh, um, okay. Uh, sorry,
It's
we
okay.
have a visitor, but we still have. So I still have the felting, uh,
Hmm.
and all the textile techniques incorporated with the painting. So I am doing some of those. However, sometimes I feel like part of the reason why I don't necessarily consider myself as just a textile artist
Hmm.
is because like I said, there's so many things I want to say, and sometimes I feel like um, the language in which I need to say it is not necessarily textiles. And one day maybe photography, and
Right.
another day it could be sculpture. And I think I would feel like a little limited, limited, you know, to only do textile. I,
Mm.
because I get bored very easily. And so,
Preach. So do
so
I.
it's like, so it's like, I have to be. That's just the way I am. I'm all over the place. So one day I want to do textile, and another day I want to do um sculpture. So, and some
Mm.
days I incorporate the sculpture in the textile pieces and make like 3-dimensional textile work. So
Ah.
I think that sometimes, because I'm so like all over the place, I have to innovate and kind of like mix it up.
Hmm. So, with that said, I have one last like formal question for
Okay,
you.
sure.
Um, and it's do you have any like dream projects then, considering like the breadth
Hmm.
of media and materials that you work with, do you have like a dream project that you're comfortable sharing, obviously?
Yeah, yeah, sure. Actually, well, one long-term project that I've started working on is called fossilization.
Okay, cool.
And yeah, and it's FAUSSILIZATION, not FOSS.
Right.
And the reason for that is like it's uh artifacts that are artists created that are meant to look like real fossils or like artifacts, but they're really artists. They're art effects,
Right.
not artifacts. So fossilization talks a lot about global warming and sea level, just pollution and climate change. And being from Haiti, like I have Simbi, who's the mermaid figure
Mm-hmm.
in Haitian mythology. So so I'm working with the mermaid because like I feel like she's a great icon for the protector of the oceans. So
Yeah.
I'm working with that. So fossilization is this long-term thing I'm working on, and it encompasses different media, but the main theme is climate change, and also dealing with, from the standpoint of a woman and a mother. So actually somebody mentioned the other day that I should look into ecofeminism, because
Yeah.
and I hadn't actually realized that that was what I was doing, but
Yeah.
it's basically a lot of that. Seriously. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Please don't apologize. I'm living. Not because of like the visuals of it all, but like what you're saying. It is very much an ecofeminist um take. And it also, personally speaking, I think it fits in gorgeously with the themes that you already work
Hmm.
um through and within
Hmm.
simultaneously. Yeah, because wow, fossilization.
Fossilization, yeah. But
Wow.
it comes from the French faux or
Yeah.
fake, yeah, yeah.
Oh,
And
I shouldn't say
and
that.
of and of course, I mean, it also deals with like fake news and
Mm-hmm.
like relative truths, and so it's a little political too. And I know like global warming should not be a political issue, but unfortunately it is. So
Yeah.
so my work has to be political, even though I wish it didn't have to be. But it is, and if it has to be, then I'm gonna go there. So
Dang. That's like the quote of the live. Like, I don't know if that's how it's gonna be, but if that's the way it has to be, I'm gonna go there.
it is.
Literally.
No, because as an artist, I have to. I can't.
Mm-hmm.
I can't. I don't feel like I'll be doing my daughter, myself, or society of any good if I don't tackle the difficult topics in my work. I mean, I could just do pretty work, but that's fine. And I
Yeah.
want my work to be pretty and beautiful, but that's a byproduct.
Yeah.
Um, because I don't mind doing in your face if it makes you afraid and say we better start um, reusing, and we better start consuming less,
Yeah. And
um,
caring.
and caring more. Because like, yeah, I don't mind doing something that's going to be frightening if it's for the purpose of making people realize that, yeah, we don't have that much longer.
Oh yeah. I mean, the ultimate way to move somebody is to get their attention, obviously, and for most of us that's visual.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um and that's so intertwined with like the emotional component of your work specifically. Um that I know, that's the word. I know that project, like when it does come to a full fruition, is going to be such an experience. And I can't wait to see it. Like I want to see that. I wish I could see that right now.
I'm working. I can only work so fast, but I'm
I
working
know.
at it.
Well, that's all I have for you. I'm so grateful that you made the time. And I'm so grateful for your assistants and visitors making some
Thank
time to
you.
be in this live as well. Do you have, like, are you in any current exhibitions? Do you have anything going on that
Uh,
you want to tell people about?
at this time, my most recent, oh, sorry, just turned off the light. My most recent is 64 Women. So, but
Cool.
I do have the solo coming up in a few months. I
Yeah.
think in February. So yeah. So
Excellent.
if anybody's interested, keep an ear out, and yeah.
Stay tuned to everyone's Instagram. That's like the new
Yeah.
bulletin board.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, Thank you so much, Laetitia, for talking to me. And thank you so much for everything, like all of the wisdom that you've imparted.
Thank you for having me. It was a real
Yeah.
pleasure.
Oh, that makes me so happy. It's so hard to say goodbye. Um, but for everybody watching, you can come see Laetitia's piece at the Camp Gallery space in North Miami. You can DM us. You can maybe even DM Laetitia if you want to know if she's going to be there. Or you can email hello@thecampgallery.com. It's open until November 13th, which is a Saturday.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ah! Bye.
Bye.